it's late. The kind of late where the world outside your window has finally gone quiet. And if you're here with me, you're probably one of us, a night owl, a lonely soul looking for a story to keep you company in the dark. I'm Blair Morgan, and tonight I have a story that was sent to me, one that starts with a sound we all know and we all fear. Picture it. It's Halloween night, 11 o'clock. The last of the miniature ghosts and goblins have long since returned to their homes, their plastic pumpkins full. You're alone. The house is settled. The only light is the glow of your screen. Then you hear it, a knock at the front door. Just a couple of soft taps. Your heart does that little lurch, doesn't it? It's too late for trick-or-treaters. You hold your breath, listening. Silence. You get up, annoyed, and peek through the blinds. Nothing. Just an empty porch gleaming under the porch light. A ding-dong ditcher. You sigh, sitting back down, the adrenaline slowly fading. And then it comes again. Not a knock, a pounding. Angry, insistent. 3 hard bangs that rattle the door in its frame. This isn't a prank anymore. Someone is out there, and they want in. A creepy prank, right? Annoying, but probably harmless. It's the kind of fear that Halloween is built on. The fun kind. The kind you can laugh about later. But what happens when the knock isn't a joke? What happens when you aren't alone? When you're in the safest place you can imagine, a house packed with your friends, music thumping, laughter echoing off the walls, and the real monsters decide to crash? Tonight, we need to talk about Nick's party. A party that has been submitted to me more times than I can count. A party that became a legend for all the wrong reasons. A party that ended in a way no one could have ever seen coming. Nick was a Halloween freak. The good kind. The kind of guy whose passion for the holiday was infectious. Every year, his parents would go out of town for their anniversary, leaving him the house. And every year, he would throw the party. Not just a party, the party. The narrator who sent me this story said you could feel the energy from down the street. The bass from the speakers was a physical presence, vibrating in your chest as you walked up the driveway. And the house, Nick transformed it. He wasn't rich, but he'd spend hundreds of dollars he didn't have at hardware stores and party supply shops. For weeks, he'd turn his garage into a workshop, emerging covered in paint and glue. This particular year, he'd built a sprawling maze out of giant cardboard refrigerator boxes running through the entire downstairs. You'd enter through the front door and be immediately lost. He'd hung fake cobwebs everywhere, set up strobe lights that made everything feel frantic and unreal, and had a fog machine pumping so much smoke into the air you could barely see 5 feet in front of you. He had skeletons jumping out from corners on cheap mechanical rigs. Bowls of peeled grapes he'd tell you were eyeballs. It was cheesy and it was brilliant. The house was a scene of beautiful, youthful chaos. 100 kids packed into a suburban home, drinking things they shouldn't be, laughing too loud, dancing in the smoke, completely and utterly oblivious. They were wrapped in a bubble of fun and perceived safety, a bubble that was about to burst. The narrator was upstairs with a few friends, including Nick, taking a break from the noise. They were just talking, catching their breath, when they heard it. 2 bangs from downstairs, loud, steady. They weren't part of the music. They sounded final. The music didn't just stop, it was violently cut off. And in the sudden, shocking silence that followed, another sound filled the void. Screaming. Not party screaming. Not the fun shrieks from Nick's haunted maze. This was the sound of pure, unadulterated terror. The sound of 100 people screaming for their lives. Before anyone upstairs could even process it, Nick, who had gone to check the noise, scrambled back into the room. His face was a color the narrator had never seen before, a ghostly, translucent white. The look in his eyes was one of primal fear, as if he'd just seen the devil himself. He didn't explain. He didn't have time. He just pointed at the closet, his voice a choked whisper, and said one word: hide. They scrambled, piling into the closet and a space under the bed. Just as they did, they heard a man's voice from downstairs, a roar that cut through the panic. "Everybody shut the hell up!" The screaming subsided, replaced by whimpers. Then a single girl's voice, crying out in fear. Her scream was cut short by another one of those bangs, and then absolute silence. A silence more terrifying than any scream. They heard boots on the hardwood floor, heavy, purposeful, stomping up the stairs. Our narrator is now under the bed. He can taste the dust on his tongue, the gritty texture of old carpet pressing against his cheek. He has his hands clamped over his own mouth, trying to muffle the sound of his own frantic breathing. He's praying. To who, he doesn't know. Just praying that the boots go past the door. They don't. They stop right outside. He can see the sliver of light under the door disappear as a shadow falls over it. He risks a glance at his friend hiding under there with him. Her eyes are wide with a terror he knows is mirrored in his own. Time seems to stretch, to become thick and syrupy. Every second is an eternity. He hears the doorknob jiggle. It's locked. A moment of relief, so fleeting it barely registers. Because then there's a deafening crack, the sound of splintering wood, the smell of gunpowder. The doorknob has been shot out. The door swings open, banging against the wall. And a pair of black, steel-toed boots walk into the room. That's all he can see, just the boots. They walk with an unnerving calm, a slow, predatory pace. They cross the room, pause, turn. He can hear the floorboards creak with each shift of weight. Every sound is amplified in the silence. The frantic, silent plea in his head is just, "Don't look under the bed, don't look under the bed, don't look under the bed." The boots stop in front of the closet. He hears the closet door slide open with a cheap plastic rumble. And then he hears his friend Nick's voice, trembling, begging. "Please, please, man, just take whatever you want. There's cash in my wallet. Just take it." The intruder says something back, too low to make out. But then he hears another sound, the unmistakable metallic click of a gun being cocked. The narrator squeezed his eyes shut. This is it. This is how it ends. After what felt like a lifetime, he heard the intruders' voices downstairs. They were leaving. Footsteps receded. A car engine roared to life and then faded into the distance. Silence returned. A new kind of silence. Heavy, broken. He stayed under the bed, paralyzed, until he heard Nick's voice, soft and shaky, from the closet. "They're gone." They crawled out, numb, disoriented. They helped Nick out of the closet. He was sobbing, incoherent. They stumbled out of the bedroom and back into the hallway, which was now empty, eerily empty. They made their way down the stairs. The cardboard maze was destroyed, torn down. The party was gone. The floor was littered with abandoned cups and shoes. And then he saw it, the true horror of the night. Lying on the floor, near the wreckage of the sound system, were two of their good friends, Jen and Robbie. They were a couple. Everyone loved them. They were lying perfectly still, too still. In the flashing chaos of the one remaining strobe light, he could see that the carpet around them was dark, wet. They weren't moving. They weren't breathing. The party was over. I can't even imagine that feeling. What would go through your mind seeing that? Let me know in the comments. The flashing blue and red lights arrived. The police tape went up. Statements were given. The story of the Halloween party home invasion, carried out by 3 men in vendetta masks, demanding $100,000 that no one had, became a local news tragedy. But the horror didn't end when the police tape came down. For some, the real horror was just beginning. Nick, the host, the fun-loving, Halloween-obsessed kid, was broken. The narrator tells me he was consumed by a guilt so profound it was like a physical illness. He dropped out of school. He started drinking, not for fun, but with a desperate, self-destructive urgency. He lost weight. The light in his eyes just went out. The drinking turned to harder drugs. In one of their last conversations, about 10 months after the party, Nick finally broke down. With tears streaming down his face, he confessed what was eating him alive. He said he lived in constant pain, knowing he caused the death of 2 of his best friends. He believed that if he hadn't thrown the party, they would still be alive, that their blood was on his hands. Guilt is a poison, and it poisoned every part of his life. Less than a year after that Halloween night, Nick was found dead from a heroin overdose. The trauma of that one night, the monsters that crashed his party, they never left. They just followed him, whispering in his ear until the very end. Halloween is the one night of the year we invite the monsters in. We put them on our lawns, we dress up like them, we celebrate the idea of them. But sometimes the monsters who show up aren't wearing costumes. Sometimes they're the men in a jeep who stalk and try to abduct two 11-year-old girls while they're trick-or-treating in their own neighborhood. Sometimes it's the actor in a bloody pig mask at a haunted house attraction who decides to follow you and your friends all the way home, standing across the street, just watching your house. And when you call the attraction, they tell you they have no such employee. And sometimes the most terrifying monster is the one you know. The neighbor's teenage son, who you later discover has been hiding in your 7-year-old daughter's closet. Not to hurt her, not yet, but you find a small, perfectly drilled hole in the closet door, aimed directly at her bed, and you find her underwear in his pocket. The most terrifying stories are the true ones, because they don't end when you turn the page or switch off the movie. They remind us that the real monsters are people, and they could be anywhere. Stay safe out there. If these stories sent a chill down your spine, it helps more than you know to press that like button. And if you want more true horror to keep you company in the dark, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. You never know when a story like this might disappear.